Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show, Dave Emmons Show. And as usual, I have guests that come on here that have expertise. They have research. They've been involved with extraterrestrials and UFOs, and believe me, they do exist. And we're going to talk about those. My guest today is Michael Horn, and a lot of you know about his affiliation with Billy Meyer, and we'll get into that also. But this man has done so much, and he's an author, and he's done quite a bit of consulting for a lot of top-notch people. But I'm going to start off with get a quick advertisement about my books. Here's the book here. What do they want? That's going to be a year old, I guess, next month. And it seems like it's selling more now because people are getting interested in UFOs. And then my second book is about my combat experiences. It's wars, senseless wars and conflicts, and try to look at those. And my third book coming out soon, Angels, Supernatural Entities, that will be coming out in about 3 weeks, and the publisher has that. I am talking to a man now who is really interesting, and I know this hour is not going to even touch anything that he most of what he knows. Michael Horn, he's consistently demonstrated enormous creativity and being well ahead of his time, and he really is. He's an innovator. He's interactive. He's mindfulness. He's stress. He's got these stress relief programs, consciousness awareness workshops. He has been a consultant to Princess Diana in the past. He worked with Psycho Software, Aang Bank, MetaVici, and so he's been all in. I guess he's been in everybody's business in a way, and requested actually. He's also got a background in best-selling author Future Self, The Bulb Heads and the Pinheads, Harper's Bazaar, ebooks, netbooks, Future Self, Sit and Get Fit. He gets into mindfulness and also, I guess, physical fitness too. He's also gotten inside the martial arts. It's called Inside Kung Fu. Qi Gong exercises. I never heard of that one, but we'll maybe talk about that. Breaking the Silence is an award-winning documentary about 5 courageous young women that Michael and his daughter produced. And it's I'll Be My Own Hero. He wrote a song for that, for the film. And he's got a documentary, Deception on Demand, and read his new book, The Lyrics of Michael Horn, A Life in Song. So he's a songwriter too. I'm a musician too, and that's nice to know. So we must stick together, Michael, as musicians, right? Michael Horn is the world's leading authority on UFOs. George Norrie, talk radio host, he said that about Michael Horn. So he's legitimate when he gets that kind of praise from people that are at the top of the food chain as far as talking heads are concerned. But he's also gotten involved in, I guess, warnings from the Billy Meyer. If people understand Billy Meyer or know of Billy Meyer, Michael Horn represented him. He was kind of like the manager of his social accounts and everything. That began in 1951, and there's a lot of things he might talk about during the show. The Singularity, Authentic Billy Meyer UFO Case. He talks about that. Then there's a couple of things we can't talk about. So, but he's got those down too. And the America media representative for the Billy Meyer contacts. That's what he does. But he's also been involved in a lot of UFO, and he knows a lot about the top secret stuff. Not the top secret inside, but he knows about what surrounds that top secret stuff. But also, he's been an illustrator. He wrote and illustrated Captain Tim, and I can just go on and read about what he's done, and he's been very, very eloquent in everything that he's done. We've talked before, him and I know each other a little bit, and but he's a great guest. And Michael Horn, welcome aboard, buddy.
Well, thank you, Dave. I was going to send you some background information on me, but I guess
Oh,
anyway, a quick correction or two. I was taken to Europe by a consultant to Princess Diana. I did not know her myself, and so I was working with people in Holland and Germany, business and governmental leaders and things based on the process that I created for self-awareness, etc. But anyway, here we are, and certainly we have a lot, we can talk about with Billy Meyer's material, and anything you want to talk about that is safe
okay.
to go.
here's a couple of things that's top of my mind. I know I discussed it earlier. I won't get into depth about this, but part of our problem, the experiencer's problem in telling their stories and being honest and truthful, the part is we have also we're our own enemies when it comes to talking about UFO experiences and actually documenting cases. We have the talking heads who only take information from people like pilots and people that fly airlines, commercial airlines, or military pilots, or even the police. I think the mainstream people are the Joe on the street, like myself. I think I heard a couple of comments from some of these talking heads that we're not smart enough to really come across with real observations or actually, experiences. Uh, I got a frozen screen there, buddy.
I'm here.
There, okay, there you go, there you go. Yeah, yeah. It looks like it was frozen there for a while, and I thought
That was probably me. Just
I, okay, I thought I lost you, but actually, that's what I was just talking about. The talking heads, and I'm kind of getting aggravated because they're part of these walls that are coming up and for us to be able to tell the truth, even with witnesses and everything else. And they're thinking that we're too stupid, but they take and use the material. They take and use the experiencers' materials in their speeches and their conventions and their books and whatever, or their articles. They use that material, but they don't give any credit to the experiencer. Also, I wanted to talk about, I don't know, Deep, you want to get into that because you know too many people in the area. I'm not going to mention names, but I wanted to talk about, for first of all, the recent UAP flap and what's going on now and what you learned from the Billy Meyer experience and a lot of the warnings that were given by him. Could you open up and talk about that?
Yeah, I'll start with what you were just saying about the people who have experiences and who are dismissed or marginalized. There's two faults, if you will, in my own perspective of the situation. I personally know from my own experience with the US government and providing historically unprecedented clear UFO evidence that they are not interested in that. They want to keep a circular narrative. This has been going on for a long time. It's nothing new. A circular dead end narrative going that will enable whatever agenda they favor to be pursued and presented. So if people get this, and certainly it doesn't mean you have to accept or believe what I'm saying to you. It just means understand this perspective and be critical of it as well. Here's the thing. As I said, I presented historically unprecedented photos. I discovered an interaction between one of the UFOs in the Meyer case and a then top secret stealth plane from 1981, Kodak verified. This is when it was, printed up, no hoaxing, and analysis of why they said the objects weren't hoaxed. It's legitimate. And this committee was very excited to get this stuff. I sent it, and they censored it. That means they didn't acknowledge anything about it other than the email to me from a national security advisor to the committee that they'd received, and they were going to send this material up the chain. The agenda here, and it can take several, different forms. One of them is the fake ET attack. Werner von Braun had mentioned that years ago. A woman named Carol Rosen had spoken about it. I began warning about the fake ET, agenda 13 years ago or so. So here's the thing, though. While there's no doubt there's a government, and it's tied into the weapons industry so that they can, and I wrote about this starting even longer ago. This is where they are going to keep on creating the false threat scenario. We need more money. We need more weapons. And the American people, this is the other side of it, are largely to blame for allowing this. Now, let's be really clear about what is an experience and experiencer and all that. Many people now consider themselves experiencers who have seen UFOs at whatever proximity, who have maybe filmed or photographed them. That's an experience, but the term experiencer also is misleading because with all of this promotion about aliens and extraterrestrial this and that, people think that if someone says they're an experiencer, it means well, you've been involved directly in a verifiable, provable way with extraterrestrials, whoever's flying these things around. And as an objective researcher, investigator, I have found zero evidence that substantiates anything where there's nobody presents evidence. Now, have people seen things? Let's be clear. Like you, like me, we're both eyewitnesses multiple times to spacecraft. And we can, if we want to be really honest, all experience, you should say, who fit that definition. I'm an experiencer because I've seen this stuff. Okay, then simply say, I have seen, photographed, whatever, with or without eyewitnesses, these craft numbers of times. Great. That in itself doesn't tell us what these things are, who may be flying them, or the reason for them. The only answers to those questions that are verifiable and are substantiated with massive amounts of evidence exist in our subject of the day, the Billy Meier contacts. So I'm harsh about it because, first of all, like you, as I said, I've had multiple sightings. Beyond that, I've received information from these people passed to me by Billy Meier, specifically about things that they predicted were coming that I needed to know, and Billy needed to know, that nobody knew, and that occurred as they predicted them. But I'm not a contactee. Well, you got information from extraterrestrials? Yeah, but I didn't meet with them. I published it. We've got time, date stamped documents and all the evidence that what they said was 100% accurate. Yeah. But that doesn't make me an experiencer or a contactee with extraterrestrials. It means that I may be part of a conduit for that information that goes firsthand solely through the only actual contact person who for over 80 years has had verifiable, substantiated, authenticated, evidence-rich contacts. So what I'm actually saying to people who, like you and others, maybe we say myself, have experienced something, don't worry about that, because it's more important that we find out, and I'm of course partial to this information because I haven't seen any other that's worth anything, that we find out the reason for it. And when people understand that the information in the Meier case is intimately tied into and based on a concern for our future survival, and not allowing these insidious so-called leaders to drive this world to literal extinction,
yes,
then we're on a page that's important. So I'll stop my sermon there.
Okay, Michael, you might want to just give a brief description of Billy Meier, who he was, and when he started. A lot of people out there may not know him or remember him. Maybe the younger people probably don't know of him at all. And he just passed, didn't he?
No,
He hasn't passed?
No, he just turned 86 on February
Okay.
3rd.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I thought that was yeah.
People have tried to accelerate his exit from the world 25 times, but
Yeah,
he's still here.
yeah. Could
So
you
Billy
tell us a little about him?
So
Okay.
Billy Meier is now, as I said, 86-year-old Swiss man, somewhat reclusive. He does not come out and do these videos and interviews and lectures or anything. He's given videos for our filming and in the past to certain investigators, so they and people to have documentation. It's been very useful. Billy Meier claims that since he was a 5-year-old boy, 81 years ago, he's been meeting with human beings, space traveling, highly advanced, spiritually developed, as well as technologically, if we can use that word, spiritually or consciousness wise, developed human beings who themselves come from a very ancient lineage of space travelers going back an inconceivably long period of time, but who also have gone through all of the trials and tribulations and mistakes that we, as an evolving race out of billions of races in the universe, are going through. What is not guaranteed for us is that we survive our stupidity, and that we survive the stupidity of those people that we've allowed or elevated to positions of leadership, about whom prophecies and predictions were written more than 10,000 years ago and have been kept alive in this case for the people of today to know. And they have been fulfilling unfailingly, ceaselessly, because we have refused to listen. We have refused to give up our stranglehold on what strangles us in our insane politics and, pardon me, religious, cultic, all sorts of sectarian beliefs going on.
Yeah, Michael, we discussed that early or off, off air, but I take a look at the world history. We've got it all wrong. World history has been skewed. We don't really know the real truth. We have these people that are elites and leading positions, kings, queens, high priest, keeping all this knowledge away from us. Like especially in like Egypt, they kept all that knowledge away from the public and the people, just like us. We're being we don't even know what the last three UAPs that were shot down, we don't even know what they were yet. We have an administration that's just not talking. And they're doing worse than that, though. I won't get into politics. We said we wouldn't do that, but yeah. So what do you think about these latest UAPs as from your past knowledge?
Sure. Well, one thing that just popped up in the news, I think it was late yesterday, is that one of these so-called balloons that they've identified, or at least reported on, if not identified, could be a project from some hobby.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
So, as one person posted on my blog, they sent a $400,000 missile to go and blow up a $15 balloon.
And they missed.
So, here's the thing about it. Number one, and this is why people have been badly misled by even following the disinformation from the government, from people like Lou Elizondo and others. If there was an active threat over the past 70 years that the government admits it's known about UFOs, if there truly was one, we would be toast by now. No super technologically advanced civilization that can get here from the depths of space, that is hostily intended, would wait for this planet to enter its nuclear age. If they were, hell-bent on either enslaving or destroying us, they would have done it.
Yes, I believe that too. Yes.
So when these utter imbeciles come forward and say, we're appointing, this happened, a year or two ago, whatever it was, we're appointing a committee here to study this for 6 months. Really? So if China or Russia were ready to launch a nuclear war, it was, if we heard that, let alone pilots are seeing their, observing the massing to do this attack, would we wait 6 months? And here you've got a 70-year thing you claim as a threat. This is so phony. I'm sorry, at this point, I have to say any human being in this society, outside of those idiots in government, that bothers to believe anything about UFOs and this silly term UAP phenomena. No, we're not talking about phenomena here, folks. If you folks are believing and concerned with anything this government tells you, then it's your fault. Take back your own power. We have the only authentic extraterrestrial evidence, and that doesn't just limit itself to over 1,200 clear photos, films, videos, metal samples, sound recordings. We're talking 45,000 pages of information, prophecies and predictions that have been corroborated that now number over 250 error-free prophecies and predictions covering virtually anything you could talk about or not be allowed to talk about. So if you folks that are hearing or seeing this both, spend another minute worrying about this dog and pony show that's being run by some senile dope who is told what to do and what to say and dutifully does it and doesn't know anything for himself, and any of the people in the Congress and the rest of them that deliberately conspire with, meaning agree and cooperate with these phony committees that suppress the real evidence, then it's on you, folks. Don't complain about this and don't worry that you're not being paid attention to. Find the truth, and then you might, when you start digging into what's in this case, you'll learn what you can do to liberate yourself from this garbage planet stupicide mentality that it's just rising faster than we can bail here.
I like what you just said, Michael. I'm talking to Michael Horn. I want to just give that a shout out again too. A guy who's had the experiences, and he's also talked to a lot of people. He's been on a lot of shows. He's very eloquent at what he says and what he just said there. What are your concerns, Michael, about the future with where we're going? As long as the people allow this to happen, where are we heading?
Well, my best reference point, and having studied this now for 44 years, is what's been presented in the Meyer material since 1948. As a matter of fact, I have a couple quotes. I'm sure I've got them around here, close at hand. Yeah, I do. So let me just see that lovely little quote I had from 1948, if I still have it. Listen to this, verifiably in the Meyer case from 1948. 1948, folks. Many people weren't even born then.
I wasn't. 1 year.
I was here for 6 years or whatever. Okay. As a result, the period will come when, as a consequence of the provocation by the dictatorship union in Europe and America against Russia, the danger of a further world-encompassing war will again grow if the restrained and peace-striving Russia, under some circumstances, lets itself be forced into an armed engagement which is not yet fathomed in the future. It's a prophecy. 1948. Mm-hmm. Now, why don't we look at what's underneath all of this? And it's all connected. In 2006, I have a conversation with Billy Meyer in Switzerland in May of 2006. I asked him, Billy, fundamentally, what is the Iraq War? What was it about? Oil? No. Fundamentally, it's about your dollar. And you may as well roll cigarettes with your paper money if things go a certain way. Remember, people, the business of this corporation, I'm sorry, I meant country, is war, destruction, invasion, and theft of other people's resources.
Right.
So, what he says, roll cigarettes, your paper money? What are we talking about? Well, then in 2010, somebody asks me about UFO disclosures, and I said to them, the other possibility is that there's a false flag event, like a fake ET landing or even attack. What better way to control the masses and bolster the weapons industry than utilizing a fake attack to push for more weapons? Well, Billy Meyer in 2017 doubles down on what he said about the dollar. And I'm not going to read all of this because I'll give you just the bullet points.
All right.
2017, there is a coming global financial and economic crisis. Remember, he told me, your dollar, might as well light it up, throw it away. So he speaks now specifically, a global financial and economic crisis. The dollar is very much involved up to this point, and now with all the global transactions. And here's something that people should pay attention to. Also, in the USA, the population shall get dispossessed as a consequence of the worldwide financial crisis, which will lead to the incensed and partly heavily armed population here being advanced on by military and police powers with evil force. Last few sentences here. The planned ban on cash, 2017, will bring about the dispossession of the populations, while the elites will swim in joy and splendor. The entire financial system of the world will be toppled in order to thereby arrange newly all the existing debts, which will be forced on the populations of all the countries. And again, he says in 2017, already in the USA and the EU dictatorship, there exist secret plans to start a war from Germany against Russia. Okay? And then he says, if this war actually comes about, then from that martial law comes, which suppresses the angered people, who will be completely dispossessed through strong and ruthless military and police powers. So if you're asking me, Dave, what do I think is coming? I could read you the very specific descriptions of what comes as presented by the prophet Enoch, known as Henoch in German, where he speaks about the complete and utter destruction of this country because of this phony push for globalization tied in with policing the world, and on and on and on. I don't know.
They got to get to the martial law in order to control us, take our weapons from us. They've already stomped on our First Amendment. They're working on the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and the right to pray and the right to your religion. They're going after that. And it's a telltale sign that we're not just our country, but you got Canada and Europe all involved in this new world order thing. And I must mention Bitcoin. I don't know much about Bitcoin, but I heard that the Chinese want us to go to Bitcoin. So if they want something, it's not good for us. What do you know about they're taking our money away and putting it in electronic Bitcoin. That way they can control it better. Is that a fact?
Well, here's the things specifically about things like Bitcoin. And I was saying this to my friends that were trying to get me to jump into, Bitcoin this and Bitcoin that. And I said, I don't think you've thought this through very well, because the government has all the power to control that which constitutes our means of transactions, the currencies and all that. So what they can do is they can watch and let people can start to, we've got this much in Bitcoin. Look, I think it was wasn't it the Second World War? I'm not that great on the history. I think it was Second World War, where they confiscated people's gold, and they told people they couldn't even own gold. So all of this stuff, understand that it's not going to be Bitcoin. No, what's going to happen, I would say, it's just screaming out at me that the planned ban on cash means that the central bank, whatever, IMF, whatever, will declare a digital currency, and that'll be it.
Right. Yeah. The digital currency thing that pops up. Like I said, I don't know much about it. But also, Michael, I guess you got some of this information from the extraterrestrials that talked to Billy Meyer. We don't have this in concrete writing or
except it's got to be dictatorships, martial law, and they are going to. Billy Meyer said in '58, the EU and the US are going to try and biochip every human being on the planet. So to all of my friends out there are worrying about any conspiracies, there are the real ones. And don't worry about whether you're an experiencer or not. Find a true path to liberation is not in ufology. It's in the Meyer material. And it has been for thousands of years, because Meyer is not the first contactee with these people. Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, and even Muhammad. All these people were contactees bringing forward the same information. And all previous times when people couldn't widely read and write, it was changed around and corrupted. So now we get it in an unalterable form. And that's why most people don't know about it. Because the governments, the political systems, the secret services, the religions, it's not good for business. It liberates you from all this stuff.
Right. I have to tell these social platforms, Michael Horn, I'm speaking to, this is the Dave Emmons show. I have to tell the social platforms that these are predictions. They, they can't be considered conspiracies because a lot of this is coming true around the world. We're seeing wars and we're seeing conflicts and threats of war, and we're not doing much about it. We're trying. I think there must be a new world order plan that just is going to stir us up and change us all. And we hope that doesn't happen. But it's very well looks like it could be on its way. Uh, Michael, on Billy Meyer, he met ETs that were humanoids, right? Were they Pleiadians or Nordics or what?
Okay. Billy Meyer continues for 81 years to meet with fully human beings. He's not only met with the Pleiadians don't exist. That's a screen name they made up so
Okay.
that all these people who don't tell the truth would use it, not knowing that it wasn't the real name. These are called the Pleiaren people. Myers used the screen name Pleiadian first in 75, and all these profiteering, lying, contact, nothing idiots in ufology jumped on it. And forget about Nordics, and that's more manufactured ideas. Here are the Pleiaren. They are human beings like us. While they are a predominantly white race, the people they associate with come in lots of different colors, and Billy Meyer has met with them. People might be a little surprised to know that over 387,000 years ago, a progenitor for the black races in Africa was here. A space-traveling black race was here then. There are indigenously arising human beings when the world is ready to, for human life to come, in different colors appear, but also people of different colors will come to a planet. So there were three progenitors for human races, for a white race, a red race, and a black race. So black space traveling people, and if you really want something controversial, many people know the name Abraham
Right.
because Abraham, also known as Avram, also originally known as Avian, a black man, Abraham. This might not sit real well. It may for people who don't care about color. They'll say, wow, that's fascinating. Where's that information? I'll say, over here. You decide if you think it's true or not. We are so out of the loop on reality. Like you said about history, when you read Meyer's stuff on the real world history and the real history of America, even the stuff the conspiracists don't know anything about, it is mind-boggling and eye-opening. And you look around, you go, oh my gosh, but I thought this was the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out, sure, there's been a lot of brave people, but freedom here is something that they've decided is now out of fashion.
Yeah, needless to say, myself, I'm not a racist. I've had a lot of friends that are Hispanic. I've had a lot of friends that are black. I've even played music with different races. And also, if you study ancient Egyptian history, there was black people then, and
Yes.
we're not so sure that a lot of those Egyptians, they were black probably. Well, you go all the way back to King Solomon, that era. So yeah, it's and you talk about these races that come here from other planets or ET exploitations of the planet for so some are saying like 600,000 years. You just mentioned some years there a while ago, but we've been, I guess, visited off and on from different races of ETs, and we even got some that are based here on this planet. Is that right, Michael?
Well, yeah, let me clarify. The contacts information in Meyer's material says that at least 22 million years ago, there have been ETs coming and going. A lot of them that came either went or fell into survival mode when their technology failed and they died off. Although there are some peoples here and there in the world, including in China, the Han, I believe, HAN, are descendants of extraterrestrial space travelers. In the Asian people that we would know as Asian,
Right.
formerly Oriental, their original appearance on Earth is about 2 million years ago. Most recently, the last expedition that came here was about 26,000 years ago. They came into the area, in Asia, primarily the area of China and Japan, and of course, moved out into Korea and different islands, and there's been various inbreedings and variations in races and stuff. I don't necessarily mean only inbreeding, but crossbreeding perhaps,
Right.
where this race met with that one. But yes, that's you can read this information, folks. You should, and then you run it through your own mind and decide what you think is true or not. Okay. It gets so exciting to think about that. As for the other beings located on the planet, according to the Meyer material, and I like to say it about all the things that I speak about that I personally can't prove. I've participated in proving the case is real, but we can't say that everything in it and all the information is accurate, because not everybody's been able to go through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that being said, it is said in this material, and Billy on a video put this out in 2015, which also partly explains the so-called Tic Tac videos, where there is some technology not clearly captured, it kind of looks like some of these video games, but very apparently advanced technology. And Myers has spoken back before the Tic Tacs appeared. He spoke about these phenomena that were visible around the planet. And he said that there were a couple of what they called Earth foreigners, Earth foreign races. And that means that they were in origin extraterrestrial, but they were now and have been probably for thousands of years based underground on our Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been many theories about that, and people think they know about it. Well, I think they'll find that the Meyer material will prove to be most true. And we have artifacts of them in museums and everything from Egypt and South and Central America. They are called the long skulls. They're fully human beings, but their skulls tend to be longer in back.
Elongated, yeah.
Right. And in some of the indigenous civilizations who had these people here as rulers in Egypt and or in South America overall, they would, to emulate these people, they would bind the skulls of the children, and also they would grow up looking that way. And there are plenty of artifacts. We have articles online showing the photos from different museums. There is another group that is involved, and they also consider them Earth foreigners in a way, but they refer to them really as the Earth future travelers. And these are people that it is said by the ETs in this case and by Meyer that they are time travelers from the future who are looking back here. They won't tell us exactly from when, not that we could do anything with it, but they are observing. Apparently, neither they nor the Earth foreigners, a couple of races there, interact with us or are, in any way meeting with people, channeling all this stuff. And it is not out of the question, based on prophecies and predictions from Enoch from thousands of years ago, that if this war that's being pushed relentlessly by the US, NATO, Ukraine, all that, if this comes to pass, which will destroy this country utterly, but it may be assisted, that destruction may be assisted by one or more or some of these people, because there is information. As a matter of fact, I probably have it in front of me here. What they actually said, what Enoch is said to have expressed thousands of years ago, reads as follows. And at this time, the possibility could become reality that extraterrestrial forces intervene against the Western industrialized countries, because these will be responsible for the extreme and enormous disaster of the coming evil times. These extraterrestrial forces will give up their anonymity and their state of secrecy and will assist those who are being terrorized by the irresponsibly acting Western countries, should this possibility become reality. Now, remember, this state of secrecy, 2015, I'm asking Billy because I don't know that much about it yet until he's telling me. So I said to him, well, is this like some little group down under, you've said you know where it is, it's underground. Is it a little group? And he leans forward, he says, it's a state.
State.
This is not a trifling matter. And the problem here is, if there is a problem, and not that we can do anything about this either yet, the problem is that they also said that these people underground have their own ambitions to control this world, probably based on the fact of how badly we on the surface have treated it and how destructive it is. And ultimately, it doesn't bode well for them. The more damage we do, the more upheaval on the environment and everything that we're destroying through very, very irresponsible means. People can be. We're not talking about the Greta Thunberg version. We're talking about the version that since at least 1951, Meyer has published with all of his environmental predictions, like everything else, being validated. And it's that type of information that got me in 1988 past my obsession with the UFO part into going, wow, this is about other stuff that's based in science.
Yeah. Michael, going back to World War II, did the ETs or the evil ETs try this with Hitler, with a real society?
Well, you're on it. What happened according to this information? Again, I only have the information to recount, and I don't tell you to believe it. I tell you can do as much searching as you can. The Germans themselves, a little bit pre-Nazi Germans, were a very organized, the Germans are known for their organization and their trains run on time routine and precision and accuracy and all this stuff. And the extraterrestrials, without looking too deeply into what was coming there, unfortunately, and I consider that a fault of theirs, to be honest about it, they thought, look, if we will help some Germans, some scientists, to develop some preliminary craft of this nature, they could help to bring peace to Earth, which is always in turmoil. And this type of a thing could then lead to a pacified Earth for the benefit of the Earth people, not for us. Well, so they started to telepathically input plans for some of these UFOs, right? Now, let's go to this whole thing of the Thule Society, the THULE. They were a kind of black arts society. They still exist to some degree, from what I understand. And there was some negative connection to some ETs who had been also based on this planet, a separate group who had been here for a few thousand years and wanted to definitely control this world, and very evil agenda. And they did a telepathic communication or control with people in the Thule Society, and to get Hitler, who had great spiritual potential. You can go left or you can go right, you can go positive or negative, but because of his potential and because of some of his personality flaws as well, they manipulated this guy, and he was all too glad with the part of him that was really flawed to embrace this power agenda, which would serve ultimately to create a chaos here, and there could be a false second coming. There's a lot of material in my case about the false second coming that they were engineering. So, to make a long story a little bit shorter here, Hitler was highly influenced by this Thule Society, which was influenced by what were called the Giza intelligences based deep below the Great Pyramid in Egypt. And the scientists were getting all this stuff. So the Nazis, as they came to into control there, they saw this as something, of course, of great power potential. According to lead investigator in the case, Wendell Stevens, the Nazis used two craft on one occasion to destroy an Allied bombing mission that contained a couple hundred planes, because they used a technology inherent in this craft to interrupt the firing through electrical impulses of the propeller-driven planes that ended up crashing into each other and all this. Okay, a side note, I cannot prove that. But to wrap this up, really, the Nazi plans then were altered through telepathic influence by the extraterrestrials, so they could no longer really be used, and certainly couldn't be used for any kind of space travel. But those plans were captured after the war by the Allies, the US, Great Britain, Russia, and even Canada. And they fell into possession, and France and China. At the higher levels of secret military, these things were developed. And alternate craft had been in development since the 1920s, because the cover up goes back to the First World War. This is all contained in the Meyer material. When we get an overview like this, we realize we don't know the true history. We don't know the agenda.
Right.
And we were lucky that Hitler was defeated. We were lucky that the Tula Society later on, became less powerful, of course, and that the Giza intelligences 30 years or so after the war, more, were actually removed from the planet. But what goes on here, it's beyond what conspiracists think about, because conspiracy people very often, they get the kitchen sink thrown in with the assistance of the intelligence services who drive a lot of that crap. So everybody sees everything. By everybody, I know a lot of people are throwing that as a conspiracy, and it's this group and it's that. And the problem is they get driven nuts. They don't know the truth. They're useless to themselves because they don't know how to get their thinking straight. And it's, Berman, I reach back here for a book like this.
Yeah.
Sorry, it doesn't.
Yeah. It's not.
And you
it's
start to read Meyer's books. If I can, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
You read Meyer's books and you go, why didn't we ever know this before? Because, folks, you ain't free, and you haven't been free for a long time. Some people in some countries are a lot more unfree. But Dave, as you know, and you've certainly spoken about it, the agenda of, you can call it communists, fascists, or whatever, it's on both sides of the aisle. There's no, there are some people that are good things. Look, I like Rand Paul on the right. I like Tulsi Gabbard on the left, but they're never going to be in a position to bring forward like-minded, credible people with high integrity to be the leaders of the country. They're not going to get anywhere because they, Tulsi Gabbard, when she was came forward up on the stage with Joe Biden, you just know. I was talking to people. I said, "Look, of all the people on that stage, she's got more brains, and she's been in the combat world. She knows that these lunatics like Biden are owned by the military-industrial complex and then some. So expect her to be out of the picture fairly soon, one way or the other. Of course,
she quit politics in a way. She gave up her Democratic roots. But also, let me get into this: the ETs on this planet. Do they represent good and evil, like the reptilians underground and the
reptilians? That's more disinformation. Look, this is the problem with the Greys, the reptilians, the Nordics, the Draconians. Zero evidence. So we accept a lot, because all these people in ufology are talking about, well, the evil reptilian, the babies, they're abducting our women. Meyer has talked about, he went to the ETs and he said, look, these people, you got David Icke and you get this one and that. And the player said to him, look, these people don't know anything. They make it up, or they perpetuate utter nonsense for this. They keep, they'll just churn out their books and people buy into it. It's stupid. There are no reptilians down there. You've got some, inner earth, if you want to call it, or subterranean dwellers, but they're human beings. They might have some longer skull things, some might not. Some, might be very similar to the Asian races above. There's one race that looks very much like a somewhat Asian looking. They have a slightly bluish, not a bright, a slight tint of blueness to their skin. Meyer has seen people with a light greenish tinge. He's met, black, Mediterranean looking people, all sorts. But no, the evil, that is to keep people in fear. That's
Michael. I have seen, like, a little gray beside my bed. I've actually seen a reptilian, near my closet area when I woke up one morning and looked at it. And I was with a Japanese a lady that was an ET, and she proved it 5 months later, coming to my house with my cousin and I. But she was Asian descent, just like you were saying. But I've seen these. Are they shape shifting? Are these human aliens, ETs, shape shifting?
There are a few things to take into consideration. Look, if people give me their experiences, like you and I have spoken, I've told you some experiences I've
Right.
had. The problem we have is we cannot put that evidence on the table. So let's look at something. It was explained to Meyer that the so-called grays were androids. They were never the extraterrestrials. These were android robotic beings that were piloting exploratory craft back in the 40s, before, slightly after.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist anymore. These androids there may have been a couple that were alive. They've died off since, and the others were dead upon the crashing. But there's a couple factors, and we can consider them and not rule them out. Number one, the government, military services, intelligence services have technologies for generating images. I have a video that's been up on my site for about 7-8 years from a former Army Ranger who also did work. He had been based in, I think, Iraq War, and he also then was based at Camp Navajo here in Arizona, where he was witnessing alternative craft flying. And when we first got together, he didn't know anything about the Meyer case, and he said, I don't know about ET contacts. Let me tell. And so I got him on film explaining how he and some rangers could enter people's homes at night. What they did is they wait till people would, fall asleep. They would pump a gas into the house to make sure people would just really be deeply asleep. They could come in, they could move things around, arrange things, whatever they wanted to do. And they could even, in some way, I wasn't totally sure he said, but implant information where people would wake up and they would believe that they'd seen these aliens or had this contact or something. Now, again, I'm not trying to tell people that they haven't had their experience. I'm giving you some options here,
Right,
since
yeah.
we don't have evidence to put on the table. The other thing is this. People like us who are involved for a long time, coming across all this material, we have to understand something. And these books make it very clear. We have no real idea how our minds work, how our conscious, unconscious, subconscious minds work. We are exposed day in and day out, relentlessly, to imagery and information and ideas. Again, it comes from the stuff we seek out, anything to do with ETs. It comes from stuff we're not seeking out. It comes out in movies, television shows, commercials, all forms, everything, ETs, extraterrestrials, flying the air, UAP. It's everywhere. We take it in. Now we could say, well, no, I know it's There are things that I experienced that I thought were connected to such little beings until I realized where I was picking it up. I had to probe my own self. It's like, where would I pick that up from?
Right.
So all I'm saying, for all I know, you've been meeting with who knows who. I don't know. I can't prove it one way or the other. But we then have to come to this again. Our experiences, whatever we believe in, what does it mean? What can we do with it? And what is the reason for any authentic, genuine contact between anyone on Earth and anyone who doesn't originate from Earth? What would it be? Do we really think that some advanced space traveling beings, which means that they already are long lived, at least a few hundred years lifespans, are going to come here highly developed, knowledgeable, and they're going to come here and start toying with people and floating people through walls? And when it was very popular in the 80s, I remember people were saying, well, they need our genetics. I said, oh, really? They need to be irrational. They need to have out of control anger and violent behaviors that they can't control, to believe in imaginary gods and saints, saviors and demons and angels and all the rest of this. That's what they need from us. So that is not it. They don't need anything from us.
Could they be tweaking us, Michael? Could they tweak our DNA with implants to try to make us a better person? Is that what they're at?
Well, you've hit on something that's actually very much the heart of the matter, but unfortunately it's the reverse, and it isn't current. The Maya, remember I said that at least 22 million years ago, ETs have been coming here, and those earliest ETs were brought here. There were some that came, independently, but the ones that were brought here were human beings who had been genetically manipulated in the Sirian star system, the planets there, to have shorter lifespans and increased propensity for violence and aggression. And they served as warrior races for more advanced ETs who lived longer lifespans, who had become too peaceful to survive and were becoming targets for highly aggressive so-called evil ETs.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of the people on this earth, everybody here now, all the surface dwellers, have inherited those two genetic manipulations. The people in the Meyer material have described it and have said there are two genes that your scientists must discover. They've got to discover and turn down the aggression gene. You won't be allowed out into true space carrying this crap, and amplify, upgrade, and correct the lifespan limiting gene. And they've also said to Meyer not too long ago, the Earth scientists are beginning to find that gene. They've got to get on and find the aggression gene, but they are onto the proper path so that if we survive ourselves, and that isn't guaranteed, if we survive ourselves now, maybe in 100 years' time, those people will have lifespans of 145 years for the norm. And if those are the survivors, it then can go up exponentially into the multiple hundreds. Yes, but they are not tweaking us.
Yeah, that's kind of like Noah and Enoch. They lived to 960 years old.
Yes, that's right. And I will tell you this, there is one person on Earth who is over 200 years old. His name is Billy Meyer. He has written a simple paper. It proves to a legal and scientific standard not only the space traveling, but time travel is the only means of explaining the impeccable accuracy of certain scientific information. It's inescapable. It's accurate. And Meyer himself is someone who has benefited from the tweaking. They did it with him in order for him to be able to live in some alternate time and maybe time space during this incarnation. He's 81 Earth years.
To enlighten the human beings. And to touch base on what you said, we are not only technologically back engineering ET technology, we're also back engineering the way they do things, the way they abduct people. I guess humans, like you said, can do this themselves, and they've learned how to do it. We're running out of time. We're down to our last minute. Could you tell people where we can get a hold of your information on the web?
Sure. My blog is called theyflyblog.com. Theyflyblog.com. I answer all email questions and challenges. You will find a wealth of largely suppressed and hidden information, wisdom, and knowledge that can liberate you from the dead-end circular preoccupations with dead-end circular conspiracy theories, government manipulations, and all the rest. So that's what I look at, that's what I present, and people must, of course, determine the truth for themselves. So don't worry about being abducted or deducted or any kind of abducted by aliens. If you have to worry about what your own government is doing, and then instead of being frustrated with that, learn, get into the material.
That's my intent, to enlighten people and to bring people to consciousness with these shows like what you just were talking about. And I appreciate everybody listening in. You've been listening to Michael Horn here, and he's great. He knows a lot more stuff here. We couldn't put everything into an hour, but this has been fun. It's been great. You're listening to the Dave Emmons Show, and we appreciate you being here with us. And thank you, Michael Horn, for all this good information. Thank you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.